What up, guys? Thank you for joining me again this week. Once again, it's Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, and I just got done watching the series finale of Smallville. It was fucking incredible. So I had to get this review out. But thank you for joining me again this week, right here on Otaku Assemble Weekly. I've actually been planning this review for quite some time now. I had been planning to do, either a Smallville season 10 season review or a series finale review or whatever. But I've been meaning to do a vid on Smallville for a while, and let me tell you, the series, not just the season, it's a series. The series finale of Smallville, man, oh God. This was okay. Oh man, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This sounds a little incoherent and whatnot, but man, this episode was just. It really did sink home the fact that the series was over. That was the thing. Watching this episode, you really got the feel that the series was over, but you also got the feel, you got the emotion, you got just everything that compiled within the 10-year history that this series has been on the air, all in one episode. Was, oh man. So yeah, let me actually get into the review of what actually took place in this episode. So this review will be much like my Treme season 2 premiere review, where I reviewed it as if my audience has already been watching Smallville. Once again, ahead of time, I do apologize for those of my viewers and those of my subscribers who haven't seen Smallville yet, or you may not be caught up with it. But I don't think I could do this review justice if I did not review it in a way that encompasses the entire season. So, like I said, I'm going to go ahead and get into this review as if my audience is caught up with it. So, pretty much what occurred in the finale is everything that this fucking season's been building up to. The Clark and Lois wedding, the invasion of Darkseid, Clark embracing his destiny, all of that finally came to a head in this episode. Okay, so first thing that's worth noting is the fact that this episode was 2 hours. It was another 2-part episode, which I liked, I enjoyed, because honestly, I don't think they could have done the series justice doing its finale in 1 hour, unless it was commercial free. If they were trying to crank out, the series finale of Smallville in an hour with commercials, that's bullshit. So doing 2 hours was awesome, and I wholeheartedly agree with that decision. But broken up into 2 parts. Part 1 pretty much focuses on the wedding. That was pretty much the focus of part 1. In the first half of the episode, in part 1, we saw we saw Clark and Lois pretty much second guessing the wedding. Because of what happened in last week's episode, Lois canceled the wedding. Clark, he was going ahead with it. So that's where we were when the episode opened up. But Annette O'Toole made an appearance in the finale. Martha Kent, she made an appearance in the finale, and pretty much her and Clark had this conversation about, she felt that Clark was pretty much giving up everything that he had now and everything that he had in the past because he thought it was going to get in the way of his future. And she was trying to teach him that that's not the case. You shouldn't discard your past in order to move forward. And I understood wholeheartedly where she had been coming from. But something that Martha said that I think encompasses both the trials and tribulations that Clark has been going through in these past in these last couple of seasons, but it also encompasses the series itself. She said that Clark had lost focus of the values that her and Jonathan had instilled in him as a child, which was my thoughts exactly, especially when I'm talking about the series of Smallville itself, from season 1 to season 10. Smallville, in the early half of the series, it was rooted very heavily in the teachings of Jonathan and Martha Kent and how Clark Kent grew up. That's what the focus of the series was in the earlier half of the series. But since John Schneider's departure from the series in season 5 when Jonathan died, and then when Martha left Smallville and she moved to DC, we saw that the series had it did get away from what its main focus used to be. So Martha bringing that up in the discussion in this episode, that was really important, and I was like, wow, like, man, that was, you know, the thing I loved so much that I missed so much about Jonathan and Martha. Excuse me, I'm tongue tied. I'm ugh. Anyway, but the thing I missed about, you know, John Schneider and Annette O'Toole being on the series as series regulars was the sagedom that they brought to the series. Yes, I just created a new term. It's called sagedom. The sagedom that they brought to the series as the parental figures for the series, guiding Clark along this trail to eventually, you know, embrace his destiny and become Superman. Like, that was so essential to the series. Like, without that, Smallville would have been just another run-of-the-mill sci-fi series. It really would have. But, so like I said, that whole conversation that she had with Clark, that brought all of that, you know, back together. Then, throughout the whole episode, Clark has been seeing Jonathan. And, you know, it's not like Jonathan's an apparition or anything like that. It's Clark being able to see him in both his mind and in his heart. Martha brought that up in their discussion where she said that if someone's in your heart, you see them wherever you go, which we did see when Martha looked at the picture of you know, the family photo of her, Jonathan, and Clark, and we saw Jonathan reflected in the frame. So, you know, that shows that, you know, she sees Jonathan, that he's still around because he's still in her mind, he's still in her heart. And Clark couldn't see it because when he was having that conversation with Martha, Jonathan was right there and he couldn't see Jonathan. But about halfway through the episode, he finally saw Jonathan. Matter of fact, no, correction, it wasn't halfway. It was about a quarter into the episode. It was in the graveyard. No, correction. My fault. When he was in the graveyard talking to Jonathan, when he was at Jonathan's grave, he couldn't see Jonathan then. It wasn't until he went to the old Fortress of Solitude, which is the barn on the second floor, what Clark used to call the Fortress of Solitude before we actually got the fortress in the series. That's when he started seeing Jonathan. And so that was kind of, you know, Clark's, you know, it's like, oh, now you can see him. So, man, and like I said, it was so good seeing Jonathan and Martha in the finale. Like, they needed to be in the finale. So getting back to what happened in part 1, like I said, Clark and Lois were on the fence about the whole wedding thing. And then it turned to Lois finally deciding that, you know, she wanted to marry Clark, thanks to Chloe, who was in this episode too. Pretty much what happened was Chloe tried to talk Lois out of it, and when she saw that it wasn't working, she gave Lois Clark's vows. And so after Lois read Clark's vows, that's when she was like, okay, let's go ahead and go on with the wedding. But then this was when Clark had talked himself out of the wedding. So when they finally talked to each other, you know, they finally discussed it. Lois winds up giving Clark her vows. He reads them, and you know, it's just this. It's this really touching moment that is long overdue for this series. I mean, Clark and Lois, their whole relationship, it's been encompassed over the course of 6 seasons, because Lois made her appearance in the series, the season 4 premiere. So it's been like 6 seasons of this, coming together, and I'm glad that it finally did. But the thing was, oh, and for the record, I'm sorry, but that fucking wedding scene with when Clark and Lois were finally getting married, I cried. I fucking cried. And it wasn't that it wasn't so much it's the wedding thing, but what happened was, when we actually get to the chapel, when we see Lois getting ready to walk down the aisle by herself, and then Clark joins her and walks her down the aisle. They take a look at the whole audience, and at first glance, all Clark sees is Martha. But when he looks at Lois and he looks back, he sees Jonathan there. So it's like, oh, I broke out. I broke out in tears after that shit. I can't help it. I was trying so hard to hold it back too, but it's like, man, fuck y'all, man, But man, it was great. But as you guys know, for you guys who have kept up with Smallville, you know that weddings in Smallville, we never see them. We never see them finished. Of course, this wedding got disrupted, just like Jimmy and Chloe's wedding from season 8 got disrupted. I think the only wedding we saw all the way through was Lana and Lex's wedding in season 6. But what? Okay, so what wound up happening? Okay, as you guys know, in season 10 has been about Darkseid and all that jazz, which I have a couple of problems with, but I digress. Anyway, Oliver fell victim to Darkseid's influence, and Oliver became an agent of Darkseid. Well, at the beginning of this episode, we saw pretty much what it was Apocalypse, Darkseid's home planet, or at least what is supposed to be the Smallville's version of Apocalypse. It's hurtling towards Earth. That's what the big problem of this episode is. The fact that Darkseid has finally he's finally decided, yes, now is the time to take this planet. I'm sorry, but I can't help but draw a parallel to Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. Now, for the record, that movie was bullshit. I'm just trying to draw a parallel to how it felt when I'm interpreting this storyline in the series. So I'm not saying that it's like Rise of the Silver Surfer. No, Smallville season 10, for all its faults, is a hell of a lot better than that movie. But what I'm saying is, you have Darkseid, who he came to Earth in the season 9 finale. And then, he had his agents on Earth, pretty much collecting souls. I'm going too much into the dark side. Let me just go into Darkseid's plan while I'm on the topic. Okay, Darkseid's plan for the series was pretty much as close to the biblical apocalypse as far as like the rapture's concerned. What Darkseid tried to do was he came to Earth. He wanted to harvest all of the dark souls on Earth, take them with him, and then all of the other souls that did not accept the darkness in their hearts would get obliterated along with the Earth. To do this, like I said, he came to Earth, season 9 finale. He had his agents spread out on Earth. They were collecting souls, and what he was going to do was he was going to perform a literal rapture. He was going to take those chosen people who accepted the darkness, take them into his fold, and then smash his fucking planet into the Earth. Total fucking cataclysm. That's what his end game was. That's what his plan was, and that's what he was trying to do with this in this episode in the finale. Well, Clark is the only one who could have stopped that. In order to prevent this, what did they do? They had Oliver forge a fucking ring made out of yellow kryptonite, which would take away Clark's powers, and he was supposed to put it on during the wedding. Chloe saw this, intervened, and then we got a nice little fight between Oliver and Clark in the actual chapel. It could have been a better fight, to be honest with you, but it wasn't horrible. So pretty much after that, we perpetually see Clark. He managed to kill the darkness inside of Oliver. Like, he managed to turn Oliver over, back into himself. And yeah, not a lot of people can do that. But the problem was, as Clark addressed this, Clark posed this question later on in the episode when Lois said, well, Clark, you took care of the darkness inside of Oliver. And he's like, yeah, but I can't do that for the whole planet. So after the wedding, pretty much everything is frantic because everyone can see this giant fucking, what they thought was a meteorite. A meteor. They thought it was a meteor. It's a fucking planet hurling towards the fucking Earth. Okay, people are running frantic. The president pretty much made an address saying that he was going to that they were going to that they were taking measures and all that shit to address the issue and stuff like that. Lois, she knew better, being the general's daughter, being a military brat, she knew what they were doing. What they were planning to do they were going to nuke the meteor. That's what they were going to do. The U.S. government, and all of its wisdom, was going to send a nuclear warhead to the meteor, which they did not know was an actual planet hurling towards Earth. Not the wisest thing on their part. It really wasn't. But, so Lois knew what was going to happen. She knew that if that nuke hit that hit the planet, and it wasn't going to make a dent, the fallout from that nuke would wipe out a third of the Earth's population. So Lois, being clever old Lois, being the Lois we all know and love, she knocked out one of her co-workers, took her exclusive pass, hopped on Air Force One, and tried to convince the president and his staff not to do the nuke. She pretty much wanted them to, she's like, hey, the heroes that, all these people have put their faith in, they'll take care of it. She was pretty much telling them, hey, Clark's going to take care of it. So, all right, so that's what happened with that. Now, what else happened in this episode? There's so much shit to cover. This is gonna be a rather long video. You guys will have to forgive me. There's just so much shit to talk about. Okay, let's talk about Tess for a minute. Let's talk about Tess Mercer, who we discovered early on in this season that she was actually, her real name was Lutessa Luthor. If you didn't think Tess was a Luthor, I mean, that was kind of obvious, but I'll save that whole deal with my official review for season 10, which I will get to my plans for reviewing the series at the end of this video. But okay, so we found out earlier in the season that Tess was a Luthor, and of course we knew that the Lionel Luthor from the alternate reality was, in the real world. And we saw that he had met up with Darkseid last time we saw him. So what happened with that? Okay, Tess, number one, Tess was locked out of Watchtower's system, like completely, by Oliver when he was under the influence of Darkseid. That led her to try and put the pieces together about what the fuck was going on. Tess winds up getting kidnapped by Lionel and his men. And the plan was, Lionel had managed to put together a body for Lex. Now, yes, I'm getting into Lex Luthor. Yes, Lex does make a return in this episode, which had me off the fucking wall, dude. Like, it was fucking... Okay, so Lionel had finally managed to find a body suitable for Lex. Pretty much what he did was he took all of the Lex clones, he took the best parts of them, and he created a suitable body for Lex to return in. But he needed a heart. what heart better than for Tess? Now, I thought this was very appropriate. Why? Because the only reason why Tess was ever introduced on the show in the first place was to replace Lex when Michael Rosenbaum departed at the end of season 7. She was just a fill-in. So, killing her off so Lex could come back, I was wholeheartedly in support of that. And I don't have anything against Tess. It's just that it's not her fault. It's the writer's fault. It's a bone I have to pick with the writers. For the record, Cassidy Freeman is a great actress. She is a phenomenal actress. She is such a beautiful woman. She did a great job. I don't blame her. I blame the writers. Okay? I just want to make sure I got that off. Make sure we're all on the same page with that. I don't hate Tess. It's not her fault. It's the writer's fault. But anyway, so Lionel was going to kill her, take her heart, put it inside of Lex. We were going to get Lex Luthor back. Well, of course, Tess, you know, she wasn't falling for that shit, and we got a nice little kick-ass scene with her knocking out the security guards and shit in a freaking in a fucking surgeon gown or whatever, which was pretty hot. But she shot Lionel. The second time Lionel's been killed in this series. Shot him dead. But Lionel lived long enough to pretty much tell Darkseid, take my soul as long as you save my son's life. So he took Lionel's heart, put it inside of Lex. What we wanted to get in was Darkseid took over Lionel's body, and we got the return of Lex motherfucking Luthor. I'm not talking about Lex Luthor. I'm talking about Lex motherfucking Luthor. There's a difference between Lex Luthor and Lex motherfucking Luthor. We got Lex motherfucking Luthor back, people. We got Michael Rosenbaum back for the series finale. Now, he was only in he was in like 3 scenes. But the scene when Lex and Clark met up at the Luthor mansion when it was burned down, I'm sorry, that scene had me on the edge of my seat. Matter of fact, I found a screenshot of that scene, and it's been my computer wallpaper for like the past 2 weeks. I've been like, oh, and the scene, it was like, the discussion was like maybe 3, 4, 5 minutes maybe, but that scene just with Clark and Lex, it was like, yes, it was like the good old days, man. It was like the good old days. But pretty much, Lex told Clark, he's like, hey man, I knew about you, I know about your destiny and all that, but a hero is only as good as his villain. And I could not have said it better than that. Like, honestly, like Michael Rosenbaum, what Lex said, it could not have been said better. A hero is only as good as his villain. Pretty much what Lex said to Clark was the line was redrawn in the sand. Pretty much, he was letting him know that, yeah, go ahead, be the hero, go ahead and do what you have to do, but I will still be here to confront you. And Clark told him, Clark said, and I will always be there to stop you. And Lex said, I'm looking forward to it. And I was like, yes, that's what I'm talking about, people. That is what I'm talking about. Like, to draw a parallel to that scene, the original X-Men film, the last scene in that movie, when Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen, when Professor X and Magneto were talking, and Magneto told him, he's like, this prison can't hold me forever, Charles. I will escape. The war is coming and I intend to fight it. And then Charles leaned over and said, and I will always be there to stop you, my friend. I was like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about, man. I love it I love those conversations between the hero and the villain, man, between nemesis. Oh man. Anyway, so what else did Lex do? Lex killed Tess. Lex killed Tess. I need to talk about this too, because like I said, Tess leaving so Lex can return is appropriate. Why? Because she was only in the series to replace him in the first place. But Lex killed Tess. But Tess got the last laugh because she was able to wipe Lex's memory. And I like that what they did was, the way she was able to do it, she used that mind wiping serum from Summerhold. If you guys remember in the earlier seasons of Smallville, when Lex had all those experiments and shit going on in Summerhold, that's what they were using to wipe people's memory. Matter of fact, Clark almost had his memory wiped. I think Lex had his memory wiped. I think Lionel had used that on Lex before. So many people had fallen victim to that serum, and Tess used that against Lex to wipe his memory of everything he knew about Clark. Everything he knew about what happened in the series. He just got a clean swipe memory erase. Which, I knew that would happen. But the fact that they used a substance that was already previously introduced in the series was appropriate. Like, if they would have bullshitted around with it, if they would have came up with some new elaborate way to erase his memory, I would have hated it. But the fact that they used a substance, they used this mind-wiping serum, which we've known about the serum so long ago. The fact that they brought it back for the finale, I thought was appropriate. Hell, Lex helped develop that serum into what it is. The fact that he fell prey to something that he developed in the first place, that's fucking Shakespearean, my dude. That is Shakespearean. Oh man. So Lex is still Lex. He just doesn't remember Clark, which is appropriate, because if Clark is supposed to be Superman, we can't have Lex Luthor knowing who he is. We can't have Lex Luthor knowing he called him Kal-El when they had the discussion earlier in the episode. We can't have Lex knowing all that stuff. But yeah, so then, okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get towards wrapping this thing up. So pretty much after that, we saw Clark finally got it together. He finally embraced his destiny and whatnot. And Clark got into a confrontation with Darkseid as Lionel Luthor, which was kind of lame, like he tossed Clark across the barn, and Clark kind of stopped in midair and suspended animation, and then he had this little flashback of all his trials and tribulations throughout the series, and it was nice, but it ran way too damn long. And then Clark finally learned to fly. And he flew through Lionel's body, in which Lionel's body kind of disintegrated. Now, is that the end of Darkseid? Because if it was, that was kind of lame. That was really lame. For somebody like Darkseid, Clark and Darkseid should have had a hand-to-hand, all-out fight. But I digress. There's only so much you can do in a series finale. But I also want to mention to you guys that this motherfucker was 2 hours, including commercials. So they had the time. But then we see, Clark head back to the fortress, and, he finally put on the suit. And after that, he flew out of the fortress with the suit on, just like I wanted him to. And then, going back to Air Force One, when Lois and the president, all of them, they're flying, and of course the plane's going to crash, and they're getting thrown around the plane and whatnot. And Clark comes and he saves the plane in good old Superman fashion. And then he takes to the skies and he goes to take care of the fucking planet that's approaching Earth. But this is where I felt a little disappointed. We don't see him literally move the planet out of the Earth's atmosphere. We don't see it. Like, we see him go to the planet, and then we see the planet move, but we don't see Clark actually move it himself. And that was really disappointing to me, because I didn't want much. I shit you not, all I wanted was to see Clark in the suit, like, grab the planet, like, put it on his shoulders like Atlas, and just hurl that motherfucker into the fucking cosmos. That's what I wanted to see him do. I just wanted to see him grab it and just, and then just see that motherfucker just, boom. That's all I wanted. We didn't even get to see that, so I was a little disappointed in that. Also, the end of this episode seemed a bit rushed because the dark side confrontation, the planet, and the last scene in the series, all of that happened really, really fast. It seemed like it was rushed. But then the final scene in the series was pretty much, we saw Lois, we skipped ahead 7 years in the future, which was hinted to by the opening scene of the episode when we saw Chloe talking to who I believe is her and Oliver's child. She was, reading him the bedtime story of Smallville. She was reading the DC Smallville comic, which was pretty much telling the story of the episode. But at the end of the episode, we jump back to that 7-year, jump. And, Lois, she's running the Daily Planet, like she always does, ace reporter. And Jimmy Olsen's back, but he's described as the younger brother of the Jimmy Olsen that we've already been introduced to in the Smallville series. That was some really shitty retconning on the writer's part. Some really shitty retconning. And then, we heard Perry White, screaming at the top of his lungs, I really wish Perry was in the actual episode, but his voice was there. So, and then, we saw Clark and Lois, and apparently they were getting married then. Like the wedding had been put off for like 7 years, but they were getting married on that day. But then a call came in about a bomb on top of a bomb in an elevator in this really big building. So, Clark had to leave, and Clark goes to the roof. And I shit you not, I broke out in tears. Clark goes to the roof, and he stands on top of the roof, and he whips off the glasses, and he undoes the tie, and then he starts going towards the edge of the building in slow motion, and you can hear John Williams' fucking Superman theme playing in the background, and then he just rips open the shirt, and the suit is underneath, and it was fucking awesome. It was fucking awesome. I shit you not, I fucking broke out in tears when I saw that shit. Like, he just undid it, and it was fucking amazing, man. Oh, man. Okay, so, yeah, this video is long. I apologize for it, but guys, it was so incredible. It was so worth. I had to make a video about this. I had to. But, so I'm going to give my last thoughts on pretty much this episode, pretty much the series, pretty much Smallville. Like, this series, by all means, guys, like I said, this last couple of minutes is pretty much going to be like my final thoughts on everything. If you guys are, if all you wanted to see was my thoughts on the episode, you can go ahead and cut off now. But pretty much, man, this episode was really good because like I said, it encompassed everything that happened in the series, and it left you wanting more. I honestly left. When the episode went off, I was like, "Fuck! I can't believe that there won't be an episode after this." Like, I really wanted more. And to say that the past 3 seasons of Smallville have disappointed me, this episode made up for it. It really did. Even though I didn't see everything I wanted to see in this episode, it made up for it. This episode spoke channels. It echoed to me. And it was just incredible, man. And, like I said, I've been watching Smallville since it premiered. In October of 2001. That's how long I've been watching this. 10 years. It's been 10 years. I was 12 years old when I saw fucking Clark jump off that, get thrown off that bridge and diving into that water to save Lex when he drove off the bridge in the pilot episode. I remember seeing that when it came on. I remember like, oh my God. I remember when Smallville was on Tuesday nights, and then it moved to fucking Wednesday, then it moved to Thursday, and then it moved to Friday. I was there, man. I remember every fucking season. It's been a long fucking journey. So I just want to go ahead and I want to take this time. I want to thank Tom Welling, Michael Rosenbaum, Kristen Kirk, Allison Mack, Erica Durance, Annette O'Toole, John Glover, John Schneider, Terrence Stamp, all the producers, everyone who's directed an episode, the whole cast and crew. I want to thank everybody who made this series what it is, for better or for worse. A decade that in so many ways encompasses the latter part of my fucking existence, man. I mean, this was part of my weekly ritual for 10 years, for a decade, was watching a new episode of fucking Smallville. And to say that the series is finally ended, I don't even think I've watched a series this long, an ongoing series this long. And I have nothing but the utmost, like I said, for better or for worse, despite all of the fucking problems I've had with Smallville the past 3 seasons, as a whole, I have nothing but the utmost respect and appreciation. I'm talking about deep appreciation for this series, for the cast, for the crew, for everybody who had a hand in making this series what it is. I thank you with the utmost of my heart and the utmost of my soul. I can't say that enough. I really can't say that enough. I don't think, they've been pretty much doing the whole fan appreciation thing and fans telling them what they think and all that type. But I don't really think that anybody on the crew, or anybody on the cast, or anybody, the suits at CW, I don't think anybody will honestly know just how much the show really meant to us diehard fans. We can tell you guys how much we appreciate it. We can tell you guys how much we love this series. But I don't think words can express just how much this show really meant to me and other diehard fans of this series. I can't express that enough. There aren't words that can do that. Oh man. Guys, if you haven't seen Smallville yet, if you don't know if it's a series worth getting into, if you're not big Superman fans, hell, I wasn't a Superman fan. I liked Superman because I grew up with Superman, but I don't felt like I honestly grew up with him until Smallville came along, having Smallville, seeing teenage Clark, like I said, I was 12 years old when this series premiered. So I was only 2 years younger than Clark was at the beginning of this series. Clark was a freshman in high school. Pilot episode, season 1, freshman year in high school. I was only 2 years younger. Me going through the stuff that I went through at that time in my life, me going through high school, going through my teenage years, being able to once a week, whatever was going on in that week, in that episode, whatever Clark was going through, seeing someone like Superman go through the same shit that I was going through coming up was unfucking believable. And there aren't a lot of books, there aren't a lot of comics, there aren't a lot of cartoons or series or movies that do that that I think do that for younger audiences. There aren't enough of them. But guys, if you haven't seen it yet, it is worth it. It really is. Matter of fact, that's going to bring me to my next point. I mentioned early on that I would do a Smallville series review, and that and it would also be like a Smallville rant or something like that. What I'm going to do, the complete series, all 10 seasons, is being released in a DVD box set in the fall. I am going to get that box set, and when I get it, I'm gonna do an unboxing vid of the box set, and I'm also going to do a season by season review of the whole series, seasons 1 through 10. And that's going to be in the fall when the box set comes out. I will post a link to the story, to the news release of the box set. I posted it on the Facebook page, the Otaku Simple Facebook page, a couple of weeks ago, but I'll go ahead and I'll post that in the description box. But guys, 40 minutes. 40 minutes. It was worth it. It was worth every damn second making this vid. This is the type of videos I'm talking about. This is the type of videos I want to put on this channel. This is the type of videos that are worth making. This Smallville. Believe, people. You got to. And so I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna sign this vid. I'm gonna leave this vid off. Guys, comment, rate, subscribe, and check this series out, man. If you haven't seen it, check this series out. Man. Alright. This is Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief. And until next time, get the ground under your feet, the wind at your back. Keep your eye on the sky. Keep your eyes on the skies, people. And I'll catch you later. Peace.